Good afternoon. We are joined today by Louisa O'Grady out of Connecticut, and she is a dietitian and owns her own practice. And what's the name of your practice, Louisa?
Very simple. Louisa O'Grady Nutrition.
There you go, keeping it simple, keeping it simple. Good way to do it. Um, so Louisa and I met through a coaching program, and we had similar interests with chronic illness and Ehlers-Danlos and POTS, which, as it turns out, are things that we both also have. Um, and that kind of sparked our interest in doing more research on those things and trying to offer some programs and resources for those populations. So Louisa, just tell us a little bit about your business and what you do.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Um, so as Lindsay mentioned, I'm a dietitian and I'm also a diabetes educator. I think it might help just to know a little bit about my journey because it brought me to where I am now. I've had chronic illness since I was 15, and for many, many years, they had no idea what it was. They labeled it as different things. Perhaps it was anxiety, or my migraines were causing these crazy symptoms like falling for no reason, or uh, joint and limb pain and fatigue and brain fog, all the things that many of us have. Um, it was to varying degrees for so many years, and I was during certain points not able to work or go through school slowly, and then I was able to work, and then I was doing fairly well, kind of getting by until the pandemic. Honestly, COVID just amplified my symptoms so dramatically to the point where I couldn't walk 5 steps across my kitchen without almost passing out. And um, basically, that's when I thought, something more is going on. I got diagnosed with POTS about, I don't know, 8 months after that. I was watching a migraine conference and they were talking about POTS. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, what's a POTS? I looked it up and I did the testing, the standing test on my own a few times, and my rate was really high. And then sort of went on that journey for diagnosis. So that shifted my focus from working with people in diabetes to sort of trying to help others find answers and navigate. Because even when I looked for a dietitian in the space of dysautonomia and POTS, it was very difficult, at least in my area, to find someone. So once I got, a little bit more functional, I started gradually like working towards this and seeing people and helping others so they have a smoother journey than hopefully I do. So that's sort of my story. And now I really work with people with chronic illness, chronic pain, POTS, Ehlers-Danlos, as Lindsay mentioned, and their associated conditions.
Yeah, because there's kind of a fun little package deal you get with these conditions, right? Um, and probably a lot of the people that are listening might also be kind of still going through that journey of trying to figure out what it is that is going on with them. They've probably been told different things by different people. So I think what you're doing is super important, helping people kind of find the resources that they need to get diagnosed, but then also manage it after diagnosis as well. Um, so when you see people with chronic illness, um, what are some things that you're seeing that are really helpful for these people?
I think the biggest thing is meeting people where they're at. Everybody's journey is obviously very different than one another. There are commonalities, like, for example, fatigue and some of the brain fog that definitely impact our nutrition. but looking, at the big picture, because nothing happens in isolation. So, perhaps, they have vitamin mineral deficiencies, or perhaps, something on the other end of the spectrum, like breath work can help them, or managing sleep and stress. So it's not just about nutrition, like, okay, everybody comes to me, they get this some kind of cookie cutter sort of diet or nutrition prescription, if you will. But it's really finding out what the whole picture for the person is, and then working with them from where they're at, on outwards, creating like sort of realistic and person driven, sort of small sustainable um, changes that they can make in their everyday life, especially when you're already dealing with so many things. Like having a chronic illness is like a job into itself. You don't want to make, trying to improve your nutrition and your wellness another job. It should be something that actually enhances your life. That's at least my viewpoint on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that too. And I like your take, because I approach things similarly, that it's not just about one piece of the puzzle. It's not, if you're a dietitian, it's not just diet. And if you're like me, I'm a physical therapist, I'm not just doing exercise with people. Uh, we have to look at the whole person and really think about things that are going to make an impact on their lives. And for people with chronic illness, and like you mentioned, fatigue, brain fog, those are huge, huge factors in what we even have the capacity to start implementing into our lives, right? Because I know my first experience with a dietitian, I came in and they handed me this binder of stuff. Like it had pages of, and the funny thing was, you mentioned cookie cutter, like I'm pretty sure they were giving everybody the same binder because it was very like, it was professionally printed. It was a very nice binder. Um, but it had recipes in it and meal plans and information, and it was just overwhelming. Like it was just, here's a crap load of information. um, these are the things you should do. You got to, buy all the vegetables. You gotta figure out how to cook them all. You gotta plan all your meals. You gotta make sure that you're getting enough fiber. You gotta make sure you're getting enough vitamins. You gotta make sure you're getting enough this, and like, ah,
Yes. Then
right?
you look at it and you're just like overwhelmed. I know I would be, even as a dietitian, if another dietitian gave me a huge binder of things, I'd say, oh my gosh, where do I even start? Like, wait, what? Where do we start? So
Yeah,
I think that's just human in nature, and it's even more amplified if we have a chronic illness and we're already juggling things, or if some of us have, neurodiversity and have ADHD, and can easily get overwhelmed by too much information. How do we break that down? How do we make that more personalized and manageable? It really, truly, I'm such a strong believer in even one or two small changes. It has, that compounding effect, and it has a huge impact. And starting there often leads to more sustainable and helpful changes than trying to like just take everything in your pantry, or just do this complete overhaul, and then we don't wind up sticking with it. So
right. Exactly. I just talked to somebody the other day that, from a physical therapy standpoint, was like, yeah, I've already got a ton of exercises. I do an hour and a half in the morning and I do an hour and a half at night. And I was like, do you enjoy that? And he was like, no, not really. And sometimes I can't do anything at all. I'm like, do you feel like that's really sustainable? And he's like, yeah, I don't, probably not. So, it kind of happens in all of the disciplines, I think, where, and it's probably, not to say that whoever the provider was bad per se, but um, sometimes you don't realize that less is more with particularly our population, where, like you said, we're struggling with this diagnosis that is daunting in and of itself. We have fatigue, we have brain fog, we probably have some sort of neurodivergent type condition. I know I have ADHD. Um, so if something isn't going to keep my interests, then I'm not going to do it very long either. Um, so I wanted to specifically touch base with Louisa this time because she has some great tips on the bane of my existence, which is cooking dinner. And we've talked a lot about this recently, trying to figure out how to manage something like dinner in a more manageable way. Because there's not just one task involved in cooking dinner. It's not just cooking dinner. It is deciding what you're going to have for dinner. It is shopping for the things that you need to eat for dinner to put together into some sort of conglomerate of something that everyone in the family will also eat. Um, and there's like pressure of having it ready at a certain time because if you're feeding anyone besides yourself, then they're hungry too and they want and expect dinner. So tell us a little bit about some of the tips and ideas that you've had for managing like shopping and cooking meals and that kind of stuff for someone who struggles with that kind of thing.
Definitely. So starting with the shopping, I think, whenever we can save spoons, thinking about that spoon theory that you only get a certain amount of spoons, each day, and it might depend on where you kind of wake up and land that day, how many spoons you might have in effort to save some of those spoons and not overexert ourselves, just with shopping, even something we probably never would have thought about before, getting a chronic illness, some seemingly simple thing. But doing the ordering online and picking it up, like places like Target or Walmart sometimes have that, or the grocery stores, or ordering and getting it delivered. Is it worth that extra $10 or whatever they're charging for you to save that entire hour or 2 hours where you could be doing, something else more meaningful for you? Definitely, if you still need to go to the store, maybe a smaller store, a market versus the big grocery store, can be helpful, to just kind of getting around and managing your energy. Leaning on the cart can help too. That's more in your realm of work. But so that's sort of some things that a lot of people have found helpful with the shopping side of things. In terms of preparation, finding things that are comfortable for you, 3 or 4 easy things, and sort of rotating. Maybe you got three things for, that are your go-tos that are easy for 1 week, and then you rotate, you have a 3 or 4 easy things the next week. Kind of maybe only relying on those bigger cooking, longer cooking sort of things for maybe once a week, if that, so you always have easy go-to things to kind of grab. And then when you do have the energy to make those bigger sort of meals, if you will, freezing or having those left, or making enough so you can freeze off portions or have leftovers, so it saves you on the back end. Definitely leaning on dressings and sauces, trying to get things, of course, with more natural ingredients when you can, but there is nothing wrong with, getting, a jar of sauce or something that can enhance your food, spice blends, things that can make something seemingly, simple a little bit more jazzed up, like, your baked chicken, your I love getting actually pre-cut vegetables. It is worth every penny extra. And if you think about it, in a lot of cases, it's not tremendously more money. Um, and then also frozen frozen rices, quinoa that are already cooked for you. So all you have to do is nuke it in the microwave. That can be pretty helpful as a shortcut.
Yeah.
Baked potatoes versus like having to make this crazy, trio of your protein, like your chicken, fish, turkey, or beans or whatever, and your veggies and your whatever your carb is. So I kind of think about it like that. All right, what am I going to have for my protein? What am I going to have for my veggies, with my dinner? And then what am I going to have for my carb? And I try and think in each section of that, how are we going to simplify that and just keep it easy?
That's great.
Um,
Yeah, I recently discovered those frozen rices, and those are amazing.
yes.
I love
It's a
those.
game changer. I mean, even that unto itself, you're not boiling the water, then you have to clean up the pans. You're waiting another 20 minutes. A lot of times when personally I get to the time for dinner, like you were saying, people are relying on that. So I only have a certain amount of time. We only have a certain amount of time. We only have a certain amount of energy. I do a lot of what I call passive cooking. So I will find a recipe or I'll think of something and I'm like, all right, how can I make the oven work for me or the gadgets like the air fryer or whatever gadgets you like, the toaster oven, do the work versus me standing over the stove and stirring or sauteing. So it's just finding those little shortcuts that work for you and sort of getting a rhythm for those easy kind of prep meals. And then when you kind of get sick of them, find a couple more and then rotate those in.
Yeah. Yep. I love those ideas. I know I have like tacos is one of my staples, like because all you've got to do is really like cook the meat, right? And then after that, it's just dicing up some tomatoes and I always get I get the lettuce that's already in pieces in a box. You said getting like pre-cut vegetables. I don't usually get pre-cut tomatoes. I haven't really seen that. Tomatoes are easy enough, but the lettuce, not having to deal with that is nice. Um, I hate washing heads of lettuce because there's
Yes,
always like crannies where there's stuff. Um,
for sure.
yeah, I love those ideas. And then like you said, the gadgets. I know for me, my Instant Pot has saved me a few times because it can cook things pretty fast. Um, and then one of the other things that I forget to do sometimes is taking meat out of the freezer. So having something where I can cook from frozen because sometimes I need to do that. Otherwise, we have no.
Definitely.
Um,
Definitely. Or even using the slow cooker takes a little bit of, advanced preparation, we'll call it. And sometimes, it's 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And you're like, that's not going to fly. I didn't put it in this morning. So that's where, the Instapot is great. You can make, soups. Sometimes I make chicken soup in there. I just throw everything in. I use the chicken tenders, the boneless chicken breast tenders. And I throw those in. I throw whatever vegetables are in the fridge at that particular moment, and some chicken stock and maybe a few spices and call it a day. Maybe rice, maybe not, maybe pasta, maybe not. So it's just, I think even sort of taking a little shift from this, even having easy snacks on hand too. Like snacks can be pretty balanced too, as long as you have some protein, something as simple as yogurt, and pairing that with some fruit or some nuts or, so again, it doesn't always have to be a crazy meal either. It could be just a balanced snack for many people to keep their energy level stable, or maybe with digestive issues where they can't have a lot at once may need smaller meals and snacks too. So um,
yeah,
that's kind of a good other sort of way to get in what you need, but not feel like you have to make this big crazy meal.
yeah. I like that particularly too because there's some days where I just want to eat like some cheese and like some cherry tomatoes, like maybe some pickles. And that's like a really satisfying dinner for me sometimes. Um, Not necessarily a meal, but there's some nutritional value in there.
Definitely. You got your protein with your cheese, you got, your veggies. Um, you know, it's it's all about like sort of making what you have work with, what's going on in your life and what you have in the fridge at the time.
Yeah, I
So,
know
and
my daughter is kind of a picky eater too, and cucumbers and tomatoes, like if we are having certain vegetables, like she absolutely refuses to eat, and so keeping cucumbers and tomatoes on standby makes it easier just to have like some sort of vegetative type thing to give her because she won't eat like, if we have zucchini or, you know, peas, she doesn't like peas and she doesn't like pretty much 90% of vegetables she doesn't like. So we always have cucumbers and tomatoes on standby for vegetable and maybe that's not like the most rounded vegetable intake, but um, when you've got picky eaters, and sometimes adults are picky eaters too, right? So um, I'm sure that you've had experience kind of strategizing with people on how to get like a nice rounded, balanced meal with things that people aren't aversive to, because if we have some sort of neurodivergent tendencies with like textures maybe and different flavors that we just have an aversion to, and maybe that's limiting our ability to get enough fiber or enough vitamin C or something like that. So
yeah, and it takes some creativity and sort of digging a little deeper to find other things that might work. I definitely see that a lot where people have food aversions and then also, related to new neurodivergence or just preference. And then also, maybe some digestive issues that have, you know, food sense, because of food sensitivities and intolerances and different issues there that can limit the diet. The gut likes as much diversity as you can give it in terms of what you're eating, but it's that delicate balance between what people can tolerate and what you know how we can navigate around that to get them as much as they can reasonably tolerate. um,
absolutely. I know it's hard for myself, so I'm sure it's hard for others too. Um, and just because that we are healthcare providers doesn't necessarily mean that we always make the best decisions for ourselves, right? Like I know I'm talking about me specifically.
yeah,
Um,
no, I guess.
sometimes I'm just gonna eat salt and vinegar chips because I need the salt and it's something I know I like and can tolerate, and um I think it's all about balance for sure.
I agree with that. Unless you have an allergy, nothing's necessarily off limits. It's all about balance, like you said, and we have, food is comfort sometimes, and it's culture. It's so many things to us. So it's just fine, like making sure you're not feeling like you're depriving yourself either. You want to have the things like minus ice cream. I love ice cream, especially during the summer. Do I have it every day? But no, but I enjoy some ice cream, during those warmer months. And not feeling guilty about it is a big piece of it. I think in our culture, a lot of times it's that black or white thinking or that good or bad, and it's really not about that. It's about like nourishing your body and having that balance, enjoying those foods when you do have them.
Right. I know we're in New England, so Ben and Jerry's is kind of a staple around my house, I know. So we definitely when it was just on sale the other day for you get like four for $10. Like that's pretty cheap for Ben and Jerry's. So we're like stocking up on Ben and Jerry pints in my freezer. But I have to be careful too because I can't have gluten, so I can't have like the cookie doughs and the like cookies and cream type things. So yeah, I definitely think we need to have another podcast together. You have some awesome tips, and if you didn't know, Louise and I are working together to come up with some other resources for the audience as well. And I want you to be able to find her, to get in touch with her if you need some dietitian expertise, or if you're in the Connecticut area and you need help navigating the healthcare system over in that area. She might have some resources for you as well. So, Louisa, tell us where people can find you.
Sure. I'm on Instagram. My handle is at Louisa O'Grady, LOUISAOGRADY.RE. And then my website's louisao'grady.com. So either one, definitely feel free to reach out. If I don't know, the answer, I can hopefully point you in the right direction. In terms of the provider thing, I do have a pretty expansive provider list for many of the states for folks that work with Ehlers-Danlos and dysautonomia and mast cell. So I can generally, if it's not Connecticut, I can still help at least point you in the right direction if you're struggling with that, or I'm happy to help with also, of course, the nutrition, and I coach in multiple different states, many of the states. So definitely feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, it was really great to have you on. We're definitely going to have you back because I definitely have more dietitian questions for the future. We have all kinds of things to talk about: food sensitivities, mast cell activation syndrome, like all those things, right? So we'll definitely have things to talk about in the future. But thank you so much for coming on today, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. And everyone in the audience who's listening, hopefully, will have a good rest of their day as well. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Take care.